We are making another attempt to visit the Channel Islands this year. Previous attempts failed due to bad weather. On this last part of the trip, we experienced playful dolphins guiding us on our way to Jersey. We're also confronted with small suffering. A fish ends up dead on the swim platform. And with serious suffering. Illegal immigrants on a stranded boat in the Channel. We pick up the story when we leave St.Malo. From St.Malo we sail to Dinan on the river Rance, a Natura 2000 area. Although the distance is no more than 27 kilometers, there's a lot of planning to be done for this trip. First, we have to go through the lock to get out of the harbour. It runs once every hour. Shortly afterwards, we have to enter the lock that takes us into the water reservoir part of the Rance, which only runs on the hour within certain limits of the tide. These two lock times still sort of connect to each other, but there's more. The reservoir is filled with water and can only drain at low tidal levels. We must go through another lock to get out of the reservoir into the river part of the Rance. This lock prevents the river from drying out. The lock only runs when there's still enough water in the reservoir to reach it. If you like puzzles, preparing this trip is a nice one. But it's worth the hassle because it's a scenic trip through a beautiful nature reserve ending the beautiful town of Dinan. Planning is not everyone's strong point is proven by a stranded sail yacht just before the last lock. We must keep going because the lock was about to stop due to the diminishing water. If we miss it, we will get stuck ourselves. Our side scan depth gauge is of good service to maintain the deepest part of the fairway. The sail yacht apparently manages to get afloat again and enters the lock after us, just in time. The skipper is lectured by the lockmaster. As a local skipper, he should have known better. The River Rance runs all the way into the Bay of Biscay. This passage can only be done with very low air draft and contains many hand-operated locks and idyllic villages. Dinan itself is well worth a visit. A well-preserved old fortified town with a great history. Fortunately for us, food lovers, there's also a fantastic caterer in this town, where we stock up on tasty small bites. Add a bottle of wine and life is beautiful. From Dinan we have to make the same puzzle with water levels and tides to make it to the two locks in time. Then we set course along the coast to Paimpol. To be able to enter the lock of the harbour over there, we also have to take the tide into account. This gives us enough time, and we motor at displacement speed close to the coast past several highlights. Most impressive one being Cap Frehel with the Fort Lalat, dating from the 14th century. Very good visible on the 70-meter high rocky coast. We also make a tour around the jagged coast of the Ile de Bréhat. There's a strong tidal stream around the island. Although the island seems to be worth a visit because of its nature, we don't think it's very special seen from the sea. When we arrive at the lock of Paimpol, it turns out that a whole organized group of sailboats wants to enter, so we have to wait. The sailboats go alternately, so one forward and then next backwards, into the lock in order to be able to lock more boats at the same time. Creative. After waiting for a while, we can enter the lock. When we're out and just moored in the marina, we see that all lock gates open at once and everybody can run through it without any delay. Paimpol is a nice town, but not very special compared to St.Malo and Dinan. We meet an English member of our association and go out for dinner together at a restaurant in a back street where many locals have dinner. Perfect food and cheap. There was a typed note on every table stating that the use of mobile phones at the table was not allowed. When one of us did reach for a smartphone to translate an expression from the menu, he was reprimanded by the staff. It became a lesson in surviving without being connected. Staff handed over a real paper book in which the answer on the query could be found. In the local supermarket, we run into a pallet full of boxes containing locally caught oysters. €9 a box. How many oysters are in? It's unclear. On the boat, I opened the box and it turned out to be 14. Not bad for that price, and fresh too. After opening the shells 14 times, I still have to practice more to do it smoothly, it is time to enjoy. Admitted, we're oyster lovers. I plan our departure for Guernsey in such a way that the lock gates are both open. Lesson learned. We send another form to the police with the announcement that we're going to leave France. Signing up for Guernsey is done online, so no hassle with forms and yellow flags. We have wind force 4 to 5 on the beam and current and waves roughly from the same direction. We can still comfortably maintain a speed of around 22 knots. When halfway, dolphins accompany us for a while. That's always a special treat. In the St. Helier approach, we respectfully keep our distance from the landmark Danger Rock. The marina entrance is behind the sill, so timing has to be right. We first refuel in the outer harbour. It turns out to be 10 cents per litre less cheap compared to Guernsey and luckily without biodiesel. Fame. We find a berth at the visitors' jetty in the back of the marina. There are warning signs at the jetty poles that the depth on that spot is limited at low tide. A few days later, a sailboat with damage is moored at that exact spot. When we come back from the city, we see the boat with the bow completely out of the water. Jersey is a bit larger than Guernsey. That takes away some of the typical island feeling, but there are more restaurants, terraces, and sites. We cycle along the coast to the impressive castle Mont Urguet near the port town of Gorey. Another trip goes to the Jersey War Tunnels, an underground German military hospital made with forced labor. An impressive visit, especially because of the exhibition inside that makes clear what the dilemma of population under occupation is: resist, make the best of it, or somewhere in between. All in all, we've got a nice impression of Jersey and we decide to head back home. We report our arrival to the Cherbourg police and set course for the Alderney Bays. When leaving Jersey, we have to go against the tidal stream, wind and waves of about a meter at Danger Rock. As soon as we're around the island, we can change course and it becomes less bumpy. The Alderney race is not as flat as on our way in, because we have wind force 5 on the beam and the current and waves in the back. Salt water spraying on the windows and roof. In this boat that doesn't make us nervous, but making an espresso after lunch is not an option in these conditions. The strong push in the back from the tidal stream remains special and nice if you're able to run ahead of the waves. We pass sailboats that can't do that and have a lively ride. Once around the cape, we can speed up a bit towards Cherbourg. We see a patrol vessel in the distance. Later, in the marina, we talk to a Belgian skipper that was stopped by them to check everything. He came from Alderney and had no AIS. I didn't ask if he did the paperwork in advance, but they had kept him busy in open sea for half an hour, he complained. I have the illusion that sending all those papers that never get a response and the fact that we have an AIS transponder may cause that the attention of the Coast Guard goes to other boats. After the stopover in Cherbourg, we continue to Dieppe. On the way out, we had decided to stay there on the way back to visit the city. It is not a flat ride, with peaks up to wind force 6 on the beam, but a blue sky and sun makes up for a lot. The harbour master of Dieppe tells us by VHF that we came more in the same box as a month before. Apparently, we already belong to the in crowd. Dieppe is a port where you must report arrival or departure. Not only for the ferry that's in the outer harbour, but every now and then huge ships with windmills enter the small harbour and you don't want to be in their way because they win. Another case of small world in this marina. For 2 years we met a Dutch sailing couple in a small town a little further along the coast and shared a bottle of wine. Now they were moored opposite us in Dieppe on their way to the Bay of Biscay. We shared a bottle of wine again, this time in their cockpit, and caught up. Dieppe is a city beautiful by decay. We visit a castle On the heights with a museum, an old quarter where all fishermen used to live, and a dilapidated cathedral. The shopping streets are cozy, especially when there's a market. We also discover a museum dedicated to the failed Allied invasion on the beach of Dieppe. Tragic piece of history on display in a dilapidated Art Deco theatre, dating from the beginning of the last century. The weather is turbulent now, and provides a strong sea state that we can safely watch from the pier. A few days later, the weather had calmed down, and we decide to sail further towards home. We are tipped off by the harbour master that an area just off the coast is forbidden area since a few days because a wind farm is going to be built. On our navionics map, the area is indicated but not as a forbidden area yet. The area is not indicated at all on the NV map. And yes, both maps were fully up to date. We decide to make a stopover in the tidal harbour of Gravelines. Just before the entrance to that harbour, we see a boat full of illegal immigrants stuck on a sandbank. A police boat is just approaching, and on shore we see raid cars and an ambulance. A depressing situation. The marina of Gravelines is a special case because there are only a few spots on the pontoons behind the tidal doors that do not dry out in normal conditions. We're moored at such a spot. When a day later severe rain hits the inland, all lock gates were opened in the middle of the night to be able to drain the water from the river that flows through the marina quickly. As a result, the level in the marina continued to fall below the normal level. A few meters next to us, all boats dried out. We still had a few decimeters left because we can raise our drives. We visit the beautifully restored Fort Gravelines at the city centre. In town, groups of immigrants are clearly waiting for a chance to reach England. They are watched closely by the police. It results in a special atmosphere. The news reports about dozens of drowning immigrants get a face. It'll later turn out that drowning victims in 2024 doubled compared to 2023. After a stopover in Newport, where we fill up relatively cheap diesel at the station outside the marina, we sail on to Scheveningen. In the marina, we're moored like sardines in a tin, quite cozy. You automatically catch up with the neighbors who are packed against you and talk about their travel plans. We have a delicious dinner at a restaurant next to the marina. All in all, we had favorable weather in the past weeks. Little rain, not too strong winds, although cold for the time of year. As a result, we don't need our planned reserve week to get home. Because the temperature finally got to normal spring temperatures, and the forecast is still good, we decide to travel back via Texel, one of the Frisian islands. We enjoy the good weather on Texel and wander around the island, including the Sluchter and lighthouse on the east point. Together with a couple of a motorboat that's moored in front of us, we end the trip with a dinner in restaurant The Pakhuis. There we are served by a Ukrainian refugee. What a mess this world is, and how lucky we still are.
Ja. Explorer luistert.
Hij vraagt voor mij de middendeuren, meneer, en dan in het midden van de sluis proberen even af te meren tegen een ander vaartuig. Dan gaan we het heel voor opdraaien.
Ja, begrepen, gaan we doen.
We arrive at our home port, Flavor Marina in Lelystad, and we enjoy a nice Texel's draft beer with bitterballen on the sunny terrace of restaurant aan het water. Perfect. A note for the calculating viewer: traveling at planing speeds costs more diesel, but take into account that at a displacement speed of 6 to 7 knots, the boat would have made more than 170 engine hours to cover this distance, and would therefore have needed an extra service interval halfway through the season. Traveling with a Botnia Targa 46 and the lines. The 3 videos about our trip to Channel Islands are not made to impress you with yet another scenic video, as you can find by the dozens on YouTube. Main reason to make these videos is to give you an example of traveling within a limited time frame while still exploring destinations on a greater distance. Not much boats of this length, capable of cruising at planing speed, will give you the same comfort being underway on the sea. But the competition, Sargo 45, North Star 49, will probably be close behind. We limit our planning in this area to weather conditions with waves halfway between 2 and 3 foot, about 70 centimeters. Wind and tidal stream roughly coming from the same direction. That doesn't seem much, but consider that a sea state bearable during a half-hour trip can be wrecking the crew when it lasts 5 to 7 hours. In a separate video planned for the first half of 2025, I'll look back at the boat itself after using it for 5 seasons. What was positive? What could be better? Some additions made in the meanwhile will be highlighted. The last one being the just introduced Volvo Penta assisted docking for DPI Z drives. We're curious to what extent it improves handling the boat. Thank you for watching.